And we want to follow up on the arrest of the suspect in connection with the shooting of Charlie Kirk. The governor of Utah made that announcement just a little bit ago, following up on President Trump making the announcement earlier today on Fox and Friends that a suspect is in custody. He's been identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. Take a look at his booking photos from the Utah County Jail. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, his family members say he had become more political in recent years, had previously posted some messages online, and this is the suspect who, according to investigators, also had messages engraved on several bullet casings. Someone said that said "Hey fascist" and "Catch" on them. The governor saying that this suspect was taken into custody after 36 hours. The FBI director saying 11,000 leads were called in this case. The governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, calling it a sad day for our country, but also an opportunity to bring some closure.
This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Even, especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much.
The Utah governor talking about the importance of this case. I want to bring in now James Copenhaver, former sheriff's detective and investigator. Jamie, good talking with you. We talked with you at this time yesterday, and there were still a lot of questions. The manhunt was continuing. We now know that at 10 o'clock last night, that suspect, Tyler Robinson, was taken into custody. Just give me your initial thoughts now that we have some more information.
Yeah, we can all take a sigh of relief here at this point until we get started with the prosecution of this case. But I wanted to point out something, Garrett. You know, you and I watched a lot of these press conferences live, and this one was especially emotional by all the speakers. I don't know if you caught that or not, but that really stood out to me. They're really relieved that they got this guy off the street first.
I thought it was interesting. We heard from investigators too, saying that it was his family that essentially ended up having to turn him in.
Yeah, we know that local, state, and federal, especially the 1-800-CALL-FBI tip line, they had over 11,000, and I'm certain more tips are coming in now that this suspect's identified, but 11,000 initial tips coming in over a 36-hour period. So that's paramount in itself. That tells me the community's involved, they're engaged. This murder touched a lot of lives, whether you liked them or disliked them, but it generated a lot of tips, right? The second thing is we spoke about this yesterday on your show, that forensic evidence, DNA, fingerprints. So we now know and confirmed by the FBI that palm print was left on the building when he had exited and jumped off the rooftop. So we know that they were able to secure a palm print from the roof. And then obviously that led them up to seizing that weapon in the wooded area.
I mentioned the etchings, the engravings on the bullet casings. Some of them saying "Hey fascist" and "Catch." Some others as well that the meanings of weren't necessarily clear. I'm curious what you make of that in a case like this.
I mean, certainly hate crimes would come to my mind very first. Hate crimes. We've heard this, Garrett. It's political discord. It's not civil to be so voiced and boisterous in your political opinions. I, this is a political hate crime. And it's once again confirmed by the engraving on these bullet casings, just exactly what his motive was: fascism. They were some maybe some LGBT comments engraved in their in signals or codes. Here's an interesting part. Now they have access to his Discord channel, so we know that he was communicating leading up to this murder or the assassination. So they're going to take all that carving and engraving on these bullet cases and probably match it up on conversations being had on Discord, which is going to further help prosecute this case.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because the Discord messages, the engravings on the bullet casings. You also mentioned the forensics in this case, and some of the messages that he talked about, the rifle and things like that. What role will those play now as this investigation kind of moves into this this next phase? Now that the suspect is in custody, and you're kind of looking ahead toward charges and a prosecution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to treat this just like any other prosecution coming from the state attorney or the attorney general, whoever decides to prosecute the case, right? My better guess, it's going to be prosecuted potentially in federal court. But nevertheless, we have video evidence, we have still photos, we have all the actions to include, they've identified the vehicle that got him to and away from the scene. So all that evidence will be collected, cataloged, and logged in for prosecution. But here's the big part about it. I'm sure at this point they've probably got either an omission or a confession. We know that a family member confided in a pastor or priest. So, there are going to be some confessions or statements, both from the suspect, definitely from the family member who turned him in. The pastor or priest, I don't know if he has the availability to give a statement. I don't know if he would have to give a statement, but definitely family members would be giving statements against this shooter.
I want to bring it, and I'm pulling it up on my phone right now. A tweet from the Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, basically kind of referencing the fact that that family members were the ones who had to turn him in. And here's the tweet. He says, "Not only is this man a political assassin, but he put his father in a position where he had to turn over his son to face the death penalty. Unbelievably cruel individual." That's the post on X from Attorney General James Uthmeier. When you think of it that way, talk about a tough situation. But the family members did the right thing.
I'm not a psychologist or a doctor, but it's pure evil, in my opinion. These people are being radicalized, whether it's on social media, Discord channels, as we've seen in this case. But just think, the worst thing in the world is a parent losing a child to death, right? But now you have a parent literally turning over his son to federal officials to be charged, and like you said, possibly looking at the death penalty. So, people may not agree with this, but we need to pray for the family of the shooter, to give them, honestly, strength and mercy to get through this process. It would have to be terrible to be in their shoes.
You mentioned some of the, the Discord channel, the things like that. His family members apparently had said that in recent years he had kind of become more political. They had seen some signs of hate and that kind of thing. Said he had made his feelings about Charlie Kirk clear when he in previous discussions. Is there a way to identify things, warning signs or red flags when it comes to something like this, or no?
We've said for years, right? But let me tell you, and I'm just trying to get in the headspace of the dad or the family, right? If it's your child or your kid or your son, and you're seeing this transform before your eyes with the political hate, the potential hate speech, we don't exactly know what the family knew about this shooter, but you don't want to believe, hey, it's my kid, or hey, my son could be the next shooter. You just don't want to believe that as a parent, because we believe in our kids, right? But look, we're at a climate now in our country, parent, brother, sister, cousin, neighbor, we must report suspicious activities. Here's the deal. If that family member would have reported this suspicious behavior to the officials, he may not have lost his son to either a lifetime in prison or the execution in prison for the death penalty.
Well, and we certainly don't know, how much was known. Certainly can't, cast any
Right.
blame or anything there. But it is, something for us all to kind of think about in our own interactions with people. I think that's for certain. You mentioned a little bit ago the emotion that we saw in this news conference from several of the officials who spoke and talking about this case, and it is something that's certainly gotten a lot of attention. I would imagine for the law enforcement, knowing the pressure on them. This is something we talked about yesterday. The pressure as time passed. That 36 hours they were able to get the guy here. That has to be has to be a load off of their shoulders here.
Well, I mean, as an investigator, a former investigator, when you investigate a crime like this and something so horrible that you see live on TV, right? You have not only the weight of the community, you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. I mean, everyone's at the edge of their seats wanting to know the updates. Where are you at in the investigation? Meanwhile, behind the scenes, as you heard in this press conference, people as far away as Quantico was working tirelessly on this case. So, the weight, you could just see the shoulders come up from these people in the press conference. They are relieved. They have their guy, but more importantly, they're relieved that no one else was injured or fatally injured by the shooter, by him being at large for 36 hours. But tremendous job by all involved. I mean, you heard it from the director of the FBI. People worked around the clock on this case, both local, state, and federal.
Well, and also having to make sure you do things the right way, because this is a case where the suspect is still alive and is going to face prosecution for this in a potential death penalty case where the collection of evidence, all of those things are going to be scrutinized, because there are very strict procedures that have to be followed in investigations.
Well, you're exactly right. And, social media is our worst enemy during these cases. Everyone's a cyber sleuth. They've all watched 48 hours or these crime shows on TV where the crime's literally solved in 48 minutes minus the commercials, right? But that's not the real world. And we've kind of watched this play out, unfortunately, over these mass shootings, and especially this case. I wanted to know more information, but you cannot risk the integrity of the investigation. Had this turned out differently, let's say the family members did not know or didn't turn this suspect in, then they had to go back to the 101 basic police work of working DNA, witnesses, etc., to build up a case to identify the suspect, and then obviously the prosecution. So, it's a fine line releasing information to the general public while still holding the integrity of the investigation for the prosecution.
We did have quite a bit of elements that were released in the past 24 hours. The surveillance photos, they talked about the reward that they issued. They released more surveillance photos yesterday and surveillance video that we showed of the roof. That was all in the effort to catch the suspect. And now that they have that, how much are we going to find out from here on out?
I think a lot's going to come out. I mean, we spoke about it a couple times yesterday. You're going to hear potentially people that had saw stuff on Discord. You're going to hear people that may have seen postings on social media where this suspect was crying out or his anger towards Charlie Kirk. Unfortunately, the see something, say something works if you use it. But we always, unfortunately, hear later on that, I knew there was something wrong with him, or I saw this post or this chat chain on Discord, and I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't say anything. And that's what I'm saying. If you see something, we have got to say something as a nation.
Is that the takeaway here, Jamie, or what should people keep in mind now that we are learning some more information?
I mean, we see the political discord that's taking place every day on both sides, and everyone connected, Garrett. And tempers are up. People are upset no matter who you voted for. But here's the takeaway: we've got to be humans. We've got to show grace and mercy to the person that you may be debating with, And for God's sakes, we don't go out and shoot them, right? And my takeaway, I would just ask everyone, if you see something that just isn't right, don't wait until after the event. Report it. Let the authorities assess it and make the decision. Is the person a threat?
All right, Jamie Copenhaver, former sheriff's detective and investigator. Always appreciate your time and your insight, and good talking with you again today.
Good with you. Thank you.